They said Earth was dead. The records called it Grave World 03, a desolate planet scorched by its own people, poisoned by greed, and left to rot in silence. The star maps of the galaxy marked it only as a cautionary tale, an ancient ruin of the species that once thought itself immortal. Yet when Captain Lyrian Voss's expedition ship, Solace's Edge, dropped out of FTL above the blue and gray orb, she felt something none of the others did. It wasn't fear nor pity. It was recognition. The planet rotated slowly beneath the blackness, wrapped in tattered clouds. Sensors reported breathable air. Not pure, not perfect, but astonishingly viable after nearly 7 millennia of supposed death. Her science officer, Cthulhu, clicked his mandibles in disbelief. "Captain, this world should not be alive. The archives state total biosphere collapse in the 4th solar age. No complex organisms survived." Lyrian didn't answer immediately. She just stared at the world through the viewport, her hand brushing over the pendant she always wore, a relic of metal etched with a symbol she never understood. It was round, pale, marked with a blue-white swirl. A symbol, her ancestors said, from the homeworld humanity had lost. "Prepare landing protocols," she said quietly. Her crew exchanged glances. The Solace's Edge was crewed by dozens of species, all bound under the flag of the Galactic Concord. Most had never seen a human. They only knew of them as myths, feral builders who rose too fast, burned too bright, and vanished before the first Concord was even born. Lyrian, however, was a descendant of their scattered line. Humanity's diaspora had spread thin, diluted, absorbed into other civilizations. The idea of a pure human was as fanciful as dragons or gods. And yet, as the ship descended through the upper atmosphere, as lightning rippled across bruised clouds, something inside her stirred, a pulse, faint but ancient, echoing through the bones of memory. The surface came into view, broken towers clawing at the sky, half buried under forests that had reclaimed them. Rivers cut through the bones of once great cities, and glassy plains shimmered where oceans had boiled away and then returned. Drones mapped vast ruins, all eerily symmetrical, as if the dead world had tried to rebuild itself. They landed in what the sensors identified as North America, once the center of a human empire. The landing site was near a crumbled monument, half a face of stone gazing skyward, its features worn by time. A human face. Lyrian stepped out first. The air hit her like an embrace, cold, earthy, and alive. She felt the wind move through her hair and smelled something strange and familiar all at once. Cthulhu's scanners chirped. "Captain, you should not remove your helmet. Atmospheric radiation levels exceed safety limits by 12%. "Then this world remembers pain," she replied, smiling faintly. "So do we." She walked forward, boots crunching over white dust that might once have been marble. Around her, the ruins of a city stretched for kilometers. Towers split open like rib cages, streets lined with silent skeletons of vehicles fused to the stone. Yet beneath the decay, she saw patterns. Gardens overtaking glass, vines climbing over the remnants of iron. The planet wasn't dead. It was healing. Cthulhu's antennae twitched. "Life signatures, Captain. Multiple, scattered through the region. Mammalian, avian, even human DNA traces." Though heavily divergent, Lyrian stopped. "Repeat that." "Human DNA," Cthulhu said, tapping his wrist pad. "Localized in several biomes, but impossible. The humans perished in the Great Burn." "Maybe not all," she whispered. The team began to explore, cataloging, collecting, recording. The ruins told stories. Walls of faded paint bore symbols she somehow understood. Love, hope, remember. Statues of men and women stood broken, yet proud. They had tried to outlast their ending, and somehow, perhaps, they had. By nightfall, the team established a small base in the shadow of a massive archway, carved stone bearing words too worn to read. The sky was dark but alive with strange auroras, bands of green and violet twisting through the clouds. The planet's magnetic field was unstable yet beautiful. Lyrian sat alone beside the perimeter lights, watching the lights dance, when she heard it. A whisper. It wasn't words at first, just a vibration through the air, a hum that resonated deep in her chest. Then, faintly like a recording played backward, came a voice. "If you find this, we lived—" She froze. "Cthulhu," she called. "Get over here." The insectoid scurried from the comm tent, his sensory plates flickering. "Yes, Captain? There's something transmitting on local frequencies." He adjusted his scanner. "No power signatures within 20 kilometers. The signal may be residual. An echo." "It spoke," she insisted. "Play back what you've got." He tweaked the receiver. Static. Then, through the hiss, a fractured human voice. "To whoever hears, we are not gone. The Earth remembers us." Cthulhu stared. "That cannot be." "The transmission source, Captain, it's underground." "How deep?" 500 meters. "Beneath this very structure." She looked toward the archway, her heart hammering. Beneath the ruins, beneath the dust and stone, something was alive. They began excavation the next morning. Diggers, drones, and exosuits cleared rubble by the ton. Old metal, corroded yet resilient, emerged. Panels, conduits, ancient reinforced alloy unlike any seen in modern archives. A hatch appeared, circular and sealed, covered in frost. Cthulhu brushed away the grime. "Markings," he said. "Ancient Terran script." Lyrian leaned close. The letters read, "Project Rebirth." Her pulse raced. "Get it open." The hatch hissed as dormant systems awakened. Blue lights flickered beneath centuries of dust. The door slid aside with a groan like thunder. Warm air, warm, alive, rushed out. The temperature sensors spiked. They stepped inside. The corridor beyond was pristine. Walls gleamed with dim bioluminescence, casting soft light across their helmets. Symbols of old Earth organizations, NASA, UN, GHC, lined the hallways. At the far end, an elevator shaft pulsed faintly, still powered by something below. "Power core functioning," Cthulhu murmured in disbelief. "After 7,000 years." Lyrian swallowed. "Then humanity built something to last." They descended. Level by level, the structure grew stranger. Hydroponic chambers filled with living plants. Storage bays with sealed crates marked Genome Archive. Entire rooms preserved like time capsules. Beds, books, music devices, even old coffee mugs still sitting beside consoles. It was as if the people here had simply stepped out for a walk and never returned. Then they reached the final chamber. A massive dome opened before them, ringed by consoles and cryopods. Hundreds, no thousands, lined the walls, each filled with a faint blue glow. Lyrian approached one, brushing frost from the glass. Inside lay a man. Human. Perfectly preserved. Her breath caught. The readout on the pod still pulsed, faint but rhythmic. Life signs. Stable. "Cthulhu," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They didn't die. They went to sleep." The alien scientist stumbled back, his limbs twitching in disbelief. "Impossible!" The energy required to maintain cryogenic stasis for millennia would be impossible by today's standards, she finished for him. But maybe not by theirs. As she stood there staring into the face of the man in the pod, she saw something shift. His eyelids fluttered. The crew drew weapons instinctively. But Lyrian stepped forward, hand raised. "Wait." The man's eyes opened, pale blue, reflective like ice. He looked around, confusion and terror flickering across his features. When his gaze found Lyrian, it softened. He whispered, voice cracked with ages of silence. "You came back?" Lyrian froze. "What did you say?" His hand rose weakly, fingers brushing the inside of the glass. "We left a message." The world healed. The system reset. We waited for the stars to remember us. Cthulhu's sensors went wild. Life signs awakening across the chamber. One by one, pods flickered, systems rebooting. Hundreds of them, thousands. "Captain," Cthulhu said urgently. "The reactivation sequence. It's spreading." Lyrian stared, heart pounding. "Let it." The room began to hum with ancient power. Lights cascaded across the ceiling as if the planet itself were taking a breath after endless sleep. Somewhere deep in the facility, A voice echoed through the old speakers. Clear now, no longer broken. This is the Earth Preservation Initiative. Humanity endures. Outside, on the surface, the auroras intensified. Forests shivered. The ground rumbled softly as the planet's magnetic fields shifted. The Solace's edge recorded energy surges radiating outward from their location, spreading through the crust like veins awakening. Lyrian lifted her gaze toward the ceiling as the voice spoke once more, stronger now, full of quiet pride. To those who called our world a grave, you were right, but from graves grow forests. From ashes, life. Humanity learned this truth. And so we slept, waiting for you. The last word echoed through the vast chamber. You. Lyrian's pendant pulsed faintly against her chest, matching the rhythm of the reawakening pods. She realized then that she was hearing not just a recording, but a welcome. Cthulhu whispered. Captain, what are they? Lyrian smiled through tears she didn't understand. They're us. And somewhere, in the depths of Earth, the dead world began to dream again. The silence that followed the awakening was heavy with awe. For a long moment none of them spoke. Only the low hum of ancient machinery filled the dome. Then the man inside the first pod drew a long, ragged breath, and the frost on the glass melted away like tears. His eyes opened fully, sharp and startlingly alive. He pressed a trembling hand to the inside of the pod, and the mechanism hissed open, spilling mist into the air. The sound echoed like a whisper of ghosts leaving their tombs. Lyrian took a cautious step forward, her heart racing with 1,000 questions. The man staggered out, bare feet meeting the cold floor, skin pale as moonlight. His gaze wandered over the chamber, the rows of pods, and finally the small cluster of explorers standing before him. How long? He asked hoarsely. His voice was fragile, but it carried something unbreakable beneath it. A command of habit, like a man used to leading. Cthulhu adjusted his scanner, his eyes wide. Approximately 7,012 years since the collapse of human civilization. The man blinked slowly as if absorbing a lifetime in that single sentence. Then we did it, he murmured. The Earth lived. He looked at Lyrian. You're human? He asked, studying her face. Partly, she said softly. My ancestors were from the diaspora. I never thought I'd see. Her words broke, overwhelmed by emotion. The man smiled faintly. Then we succeeded more than we knew. The stars remember us. He turned toward the rows of pods as the others began to open, one after another. People emerged. Men and women, young and old, all pale, dazed, clutching each other in disbelief. Their breaths fogged the air, their voices overlapping in soft confusion and wonder. Lyrian watched as the first of them fell to their knees, touching the floor, whispering words of thanks to a world they had not seen in ages. She realized then that these were not survivors. They were inheritors of a promise kept by ghosts. The man straightened, his strength returning in slow waves. My name is Commander Elias Ward, he said, his voice steadier now. Project Rebirth was my command. We were the last line of humanity before the storms. When the oceans boiled and the sky burned, we built this refuge beneath the bones of the old world. We hoped the Earth would heal while we slept. He looked around the chamber. And now we wake to find strangers from the stars standing in our home. Lyrian inclined her head. We came searching for answers, she said. The galaxy believes humanity destroyed itself. They called Earth a grave. Elias laughed, a short, dry sound that held both sorrow and pride. Then they were right. We buried ourselves to live again. Sometimes you must die properly before you can be reborn. As more of the cryopods hissed open, the chamber filled with life. Barefoot humans wrapped in white stasis linens, murmuring prayers, crying, laughing, or simply standing in stunned silence. The air grew warmer, the hum deeper, as though the planet itself was responding to their awakening. Cthulhu's instruments struggled to keep up. Captain, he whispered urgently, the energy fields beneath the surface are fluctuating. Massive geothermal and magnetic activity. The planet's core. Something's happening, Elias overheard. Good, he said simply. It means the process is continuing. The Earth was never meant to die quietly. We seeded it, Lyrian frowned. Seated? With what? He gestured for her to follow. They walked down a narrow hall that opened into another chamber, one filled with tanks of glowing liquid. Within floated strange, shimmering masses, root-like structures intertwined with strands of metal. Biomachines, Elias explained, half organic, half synthetic. We designed them to rebuild the biosphere from the molecular level. They fed on decay, consumed radiation, converted toxins into soil. Over time, they spread across the planet. The forests, the rivers, the atmosphere, they are all partially artificial now. Earth learned to heal itself. Cthulhu stared in shock. You turned your entire planet into a living engine. Elias smiled faintly. Not turned, taught. Humanity had to earn its resurrection. He placed a hand on one of the tanks. We left a message for whoever found us in case our species failed. But it seems the stars carried our children farther than we dared hope. Lyrian's voice was low, reverent. We thought you were gone forever. Gone? Elias's eyes gleamed with quiet fire. No, humanity doesn't vanish. We adapt. Even if our bones turn to dust, our will finds new hands to build with. Look at you. You stand on alien soil, wear alien tech, speak alien tongues, but I know that fire in your eyes. We built the stars into our blood. As the days passed, the explorers and the newly awakened humans began to coexist within the ancient facility. The Solace's Edge relayed reports back to the Concord, which erupted in disbelief. They demanded verification, data, proof. Lyrian sent them everything: scans, recordings, DNA comparisons. The response came back curt and hesitant. Maintain observation. Do not interfere. But she ignored it. She could not look at these people, her own kind reborn, and see them as something to be studied. The reawakened humans adapted quickly. The facility's systems provided food synthesized from ancient biocultures, and its AI, dormant for millennia, came online under Elias's voice command. Welcome back, Commander Ward, it said in a gentle tone. The planetary recovery cycle has reached 98% completion. Surface biosphere restored. Civilization archives remain sealed. Unseal them, Elias ordered. Moments later, holographic projections filled the room. Records of old Earth, cities alive, oceans blue, humanity thriving before the end. Lyrian watched, breath caught in her throat, as the past came to life before her eyes. Children running through streets, rockets rising into the heavens, music, laughter, storms of color and light. Then came the collapse. Flames, riots, black skies. But through it all, there was always the same message written into their works, their songs, their last transmissions. We will endure. Elias turned to her. We built this knowing we would never see the stars again. We thought maybe, just maybe, someone else would find us. Someone like you. That night, Lyrian stood outside the facility, looking up at the unfamiliar constellations. The auroras danced across the horizon, brighter than before, almost like veins of light flowing across the heavens. Cthulhu joined her, holding a scanner. Captain, something you should know. The humans' reawakening isn't just biological. It's planetary. The energy signatures match the geothermal resonance of the core. It's as if their return is triggering a global synchronization. She looked down at the ground beneath her boots. Maybe Earth's alive in more ways than we understand. He hesitated. The Concord will not take kindly to this. A dead world resurrected. Humans reborn. It challenges everything we believe about extinction and evolution. Let them come, she said quietly. Earth doesn't need permission to live. By morning, the first signs appeared. Across the surface, dormant structures awakened. Ancient towers lighting up, energy grids humming beneath the soil, satellites long thought dead rising from their graves. From orbit, the Solace's Edge reported that the planet's magnetic field was stabilizing, stronger than ever. Storms calmed. Oceans shimmered with renewed clarity. The grave was becoming a cradle again. Inside the facility, Elias stood before his people. We are not who we were, he told them. We cannot rebuild what was lost, but we can teach, guide, and remember. This planet is alive again. Let us be worthy of its second chance. Lyrian watched as they began to organize. Scientists reviving old data cores, engineers testing power conduits, children born in stasis learning to walk on trembling legs. The air vibrated with purpose. Humanity, once ashes, was breathing again. That evening, as the suns, one distant, one faint, set beyond the horizon, Lyrian found Elias outside, staring at the ruins above the facility. "What happens now?" she asked. He smiled sadly. "Now we see who comes knocking. You said the galaxy thinks Earth is a grave. Let them come see the truth. But I suspect they won't all come in peace." He was right. 2 weeks later, sensors picked up multiple warp signatures entering the system. Concord ships? Warships? Their message was simple. All unauthorized species are to vacate Grave World 03. Human anomalies will be contained and studied under galactic quarantine protocols. Cthulhu was distraught. "They think this is contamination. They're afraid of what this means." Lyrian clenched her fists. "No, they're afraid of what it proves, that humanity didn't fail." Elias turned to her, eyes calm but burning. "Then it's time we reminded them what being human means." They gathered in the command hall, ancient holograms flickering to life. Defense systems long dormant hummed awake. The Solace's edge transmitted warnings to the incoming fleet, but they didn't slow. Above the planet, clouds swirled in vast spirals of light, as the Earth itself seemed to stir in response. Elias looked up, then back at Lyrian. "You asked what we seeded into the Earth?" he said. "It wasn't just biomachines. We gave it memory. We taught it to protect its children." As the first Concord ship entered orbit, sensors screamed with energy surges. From the planet's crust, titanic pulses of light erupted, reaching into the sky like roots of living lightning. The fleet scattered in confusion as their systems flickered. Lyrian stared in awe. "What's happening?" "The Earth remembers," Elias whispered. And above them, for the first time in 7,000 years, the planet called home spoke, not in words, but in a voice of wind, storm, and thunder that carried across the stars, defying death itself. The Concord fleet arrived like a wall of steel and silence, dozens of ships stretching across the horizon of the upper atmosphere. Their banners bore the sigil of unity, peace, and control, but beneath it lurked fear, the kind that comes when the impossible walks out of myth. Humanity, a species consigned to extinction, had stirred again, and the galaxy was not ready to face its own reflection. From the surface, Lyrian and Elias watched the streaks of fire trace through the twilight sky as orbit-to-ground scans lanced down in lines of light. The ships were mapping, measuring, assessing, searching for weakness. Elias's eyes narrowed. "They'll call it containment," he murmured. "But it's just another word for chains." Lyrian clenched her jaw. She had served under the Concord once, believed in its ideals of peace among the stars. But she knew how they operated when faced with what they didn't understand. "They won't listen," she said. "They'll claim this world is a threat. They'll quarantine you, dissect your systems, maybe even sterilize the biosphere to prevent contamination." Elias gave a faint, humorless smile. "Then we'll show them why Earth is not to be taken lightly." He turned to his people, hundreds of whom were now awake, clothed, fed, and organized into work teams. Their movements had purpose, unity. For a civilization that had slept for 7 millennia, they adapted faster than any species Lyrian had ever witnessed. It wasn't just survival, it was instinct. She could see it in the way they moved, the way they touched the soil as if they could feel the pulse beneath. Cthulhu approached, holding a datapad filled with readings. His antennae quivered nervously. "Captain, the planet's electromagnetic field is evolving. It's synchronizing with the network of biomachines the humans built. I've never seen anything like it. The planet is effectively self-aware." Elias nodded, unshaken. "That was the goal. Earth's consciousness was born out of necessity. We taught it to learn from everything, our cities, our failures, even our ashes. It knows us better than we knew ourselves." Lyrian glanced up at the auroras, brighter now, curling in ribbons of green and gold. "It's protecting you, isn't it?" Elias looked at her with eyes like winter fire. "Not just us. It's protecting life. That's the one promise we made before the end. That this planet would never again allow extinction without a fight. The first transmission from the Concorde came hours later, broadcast across open channels. A deep, authoritative voice spoke in Standard Galactic. To the entities occupying Grave World 03, you are in violation of the Concorde Code 127C regarding reclamation of contaminated systems. You are ordered to cease all activity and prepare for evacuation. This world is under quarantine. Lyrian looked to Elias. He didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and activated an ancient transmitter, its interface glowing faintly with the symbol of Earth. An old, worn map of continents encircled by a ring. His voice carried across the stars, calm and steady. This is Commander Elias Ward of the Terran Rebirth Initiative. Earth is no longer your grave world. It is our home and it stands free. Any who come here in peace are welcome. Any who come in fear will find that this world remembers how to defend itself. The channel went silent for a moment. Then the fleet began to move. Lyrian could see the flashes of energy weapons charging in orbit. "They're going to strike," she whispered. Elias simply said, "Let them try." The first beam lanced downward, a line of blue fire slicing through the clouds. It hit the surface with a thunderous roar, but instead of an explosion, light erupted upward, bending, coiling, and vanishing into the sky. The ground beneath Lyrian's feet trembled, but there was no destruction. The planet had absorbed the energy. Cthulhu's scanners went wild. "Captain!" The Earth converted the energy into magnetic resonance. "It's feeding on the attack!" The second strike followed, then a third. Each one vanished into the planet's skin, leaving nothing but waves of light dancing across the heavens. In orbit, confusion rippled through the fleet. The humans on the surface watched in silence, their faces calm, as if they'd seen this before. Elias turned toward the horizon, where a vast network of silver lines had begun to glow beneath the soil. Circuits spanning continents. "You see, Captain," he said softly, "we built this planet to survive us. We became its caretakers, and in return, it became our shield. Earth does not fight with weapons. It fights with memory." From space, the fleet regrouped. Their flagship began transmitting coded signals. Lyrian intercepted the data stream and frowned. "They're calling for reinforcement. Entire divisions are mobilizing. They mean to capture this world." Elias closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with a quiet resolve. "Then we'll teach them what it means to face a species that refused to die." He summoned the others to the command dome. There, holographic displays lit the room with ghostly light, maps of the planet, energy flows, defensive grids. But among them was something else, something older. A human map of the stars, marking every known system once touched by the old Earth civilization. "Before we fell," Elias said, "we sent colonies, generation ships, out into the dark. Some made it, some didn't. You, Lyrian, are proof that at least one line survived among the stars. But now that we're awake, those who share our blood will feel it. Earth calls to its children." The words resonated through the hall. The scientists began transmitting coded bursts into deep space. Ancient signals carried on frequencies only humans would recognize. Lyrian realized what they were doing. "You're calling the diaspora," she said. Elias nodded. "Every scattered ember, every lost colony, every bloodline with a spark of our origin. The galaxy thought humanity was extinct, but we were never gone. We were simply waiting to remember ourselves." Cthulhu trembled. "If you do this, you'll draw attention. The Concorde will see it as an act of rebellion." Elias looked at him, calm and unafraid. "It's not rebellion, Cthulhu. It's resurrection." Hours later, the night sky came alive with falling stars, signals responding from distant corners of the galaxy. Old human outposts, forgotten hybrids, descendants who had thought Earth a myth, all answering the call. Some signals were faint, others strong, but they were there, a constellation of voices rising from the void. And as they answered, something shifted within the planet. The forests glowed faintly under the auroras. The oceans shimmered with pulses of bioluminescent light. Lyrian could feel it through her boots, through the air, an awareness vast and ancient stirring beneath her. The Earth was listening. Then came the fleet's second assault. They dropped kinetic projectiles, massive rods designed to punch through planetary crusts. The humans didn't run. They simply stood in silence, eyes fixed on the sky. As the rods screamed downward, the atmosphere itself shimmered and twisted. The rods disintegrated mid-air, melting into harmless particles that rained down like silver dust. Cthulhu could hardly breathe. "It's manipulating gravity," he gasped. "The entire planet's electromagnetic field is realigning to counter external mass velocity. It's impossible." Elias smiled faintly. "Impossible used to be our favorite word." Then the Earth answered back. Not with violence, but with a pulse. A wave of electromagnetic resonance rippled outward from its core, passing harmlessly through living beings but short-circuiting the Concorde fleet. Ships flickered and fell silent, their engines dead, their weapons powerless. In orbit, entire fleets drifted like toy boats on a black sea. Lyrian felt her throat tighten as she watched the sky fill with silent, crippled vessels. "You could destroy them," she said quietly. "You could wipe them out." Elias shook his head. "No, that would make us what we once were, afraid and angry. Earth does not destroy out of vengeance. It defends through balance." The pulse faded. One by one, the ships regained limited control, their systems rebooting just enough to retreat. Within hours, the fleet scattered, vanishing into the blackness from which it came. For the first time in thousands of years, the planet was free from alien touch. In the quiet that followed, Lyrian stood with Elias atop the ruins. The auroras had dimmed to soft green bands, whispering across the horizon like breath. "They'll come back," she said. "The Concorde never forgets." "I know," he replied. "But next time, we won't be alone." He nodded toward the night sky. Among the stars, faint signals still blinked, the diaspora's response growing stronger. "They're coming home." She looked at him, heart heavy with wonder and dread. "What happens when they arrive?" "The galaxy's changed. There's no empire left, no nations, no wars like yours. Humanity is scattered, diluted." Elias's gaze softened. "Then we'll remind them what home feels like." Days turned into weeks. The facility expanded outward as the awakened humans began rebuilding. They constructed new habitats from the ruins, powered by the planet's living network. Cthulhu and his team documented everything, knowing this discovery would rewrite history. Yet there was something deeper happening. Something unmeasurable. The humans began to speak to the Earth itself. Through neural links, meditation, or instinct, they communicated with the planet's consciousness. The world responded with weather patterns, with the rustle of leaves, with warmth in the soil. It was communion. Lyrian once asked Elias what it felt like. He answered simply, "Like talking to a parent who never stopped loving you." Then, one evening while she was monitoring incoming signals, a new transmission came through, strong, structured, and unmistakably human. It wasn't from orbit, nor from the Concorde. It came from beyond the edge of the system. The voice crackled through the comm. "This is the Ark ship Sol Invictus, responding to Terran's signal. We heard the call. We're coming home." Elias stared at the transmission, tears glinting in his eyes. "They made it," he whispered. "The first colony ship." "They made it," Lyrian smiled. "Then the grave has truly bloomed." As the Sol Invictus drew nearer, its ancient engines burning gold against the darkness, Earth's auroras brightened once more, stretching toward the sky as if reaching out to welcome its children home. And far above, in the quiet void where fleets once stood ready to destroy, the stars themselves seemed to shift, watching, remembering, perhaps even forgiving. Humanity had been called extinct. The Earth had been called a grave. But graves are only where seeds rest before they rise again. And the galaxy, for the first time in ages, realized that the dead world of humanity was not sleeping. It was awake. The Ark ship Sol Invictus arrived 3 weeks after the last Concorde ship fled the system. It came gliding out of the void like a wounded god returning to its altar, its hull scarred and weathered by millennia of wandering, yet still burning with golden thrusters that shimmered like dawn. Its surface was etched with human symbols, languages layered one atop another, half erased by time but never forgotten. The vessel had been launched before the Great Burn, meant to carry tens of thousands to the stars. Now it had come back, not because it was lost, but because it had heard the song of home. Lyrian stood on the surface with Elias and the others, watching as the massive craft descended through the atmosphere. The planet itself seemed to respond. Winds softening, skies clearing, auroras folding back like curtains. The ship broke through the clouds in a cascade of golden light and landed on a plain of glassy stone, its landing struts sinking into soil that shimmered faintly with energy. When its engines finally quieted, the world fell silent. Only the heartbeat of the Earth, slow, steady, and ancient, remained. From the ship's airlocks came people. Thousands of them. They were taller than the sleepers from Rebirth, skin tinted by generations of adapting to alien suns, their eyes reflecting nebular hues. But they were unmistakably human. Their leader, a woman with silver hair braided tight against her scalp, stepped forward. Her armor bore the crest of a rising sun. When she saw Elias, she froze, tears brightening her eyes. "By the stars," she whispered. "You're real." Elias smiled faintly. "So are you." The two embraced like lost kin reunited after ages apart. Around them, the air filled with murmurs and gasps as the newcomers touched the soil for the first time, many kneeling and pressing their palms into the living ground. Some wept openly, others sang. Old hymns in languages Lyrian didn't understand, but that the earth seemed to recognize. The wind carried their voices across the plains, echoing softly against the ruins of the old world. Cthulhu recorded everything, his eyes wide with awe. "This changes everything," he whispered. "A species thought extinct not only returns, but reunites with itself. The Concord cannot suppress this." "They'll try," Lyrian said, "but truth has a way of spreading faster than fear." Inside the facility, the humans of Earth and those of Sol Invictus began to merge their knowledge. The starfarers brought records of forgotten colonies, of human enclaves hidden across the galaxy, some thriving, others fading into legend. Elias shared the secrets of the living planet, the neural lattice that linked every leaf, every stone, every current of air. The meeting stretched for days, then weeks. They debated philosophy, governance, survival, and the meaning of being human after so much time and distance. What bound them together wasn't nostalgia. It was a shared recognition of something deeper. Elias stood before a gathering of both groups, his voice carrying through the great dome of the Rebirth complex. "We are not what we were," he said. "We have been scattered, reshaped, broken, and reborn. The galaxy calls us extinct, yet here we stand, proof that death was only a chapter, not the end. The Earth gave us life once, and again it gives us purpose. But we must not repeat the arrogance that nearly destroyed us. We are not here to conquer. We are here to grow." The leader of Sol Invictus, Commander Sarah Mikal, nodded solemnly. "We wandered for 7,000 years, searching for a place to belong. Every world we found taught us something: how to survive, how to adapt, how to live with the unknown. But none of them were home. Now that we've found it again, we must be worthy of it." Their alliance was immediate, but not effortless. The Earthborn saw themselves as guardians of the planet's living systems, bound to its rhythm. The Starborn were explorers, their technology vast and efficient, their minds oriented toward the cosmos rather than the soil. There were disagreements about how to rebuild, how much to share with outsiders, whether to reach out to the Concord or hide from it. Yet through it all, one constant remained. The Earth itself was listening. At night, when the debates grew heated, the auroras would shimmer more brightly, calming hearts and quieting voices. When exhaustion set in, warm breezes carried the scent of new blossoms through the air, soothing tempers. Elias came to believe the planet wasn't just alive, it was guiding them. "It remembers our rage," he told Lyrian one night, as they watched lightning crawl gently along distant clouds, "and it won't let us repeat it." The next crisis came when the Concord returned. Not with fleets, but with words. A transmission arrived from the nearest relay station, its tone careful and measured. To the inhabitants of reclassified System 03 Humanus, the Concord recognizes the restoration of Earth and requests negotiation under neutral terms. Lyrian sighed. "Negotiation," she muttered. "They mean control." Elias looked to Sarah. "They're afraid," he said, "and fear can be useful." The delegation arrived days later, 3 ships, unarmed, bearing envoys of multiple species. They landed cautiously, flanked by drones. When they stepped onto the soil, the air itself seemed to test them. The wind stilled, and the planet's subtle hum grew louder, as if watching. The lead envoy, an avian scholar named Thrix Orin, approached with visible unease. "We come in peace," he said, wings tucked close. "The Concord Council seeks to understand this phenomenon." Elias nodded. "Then understand this first," he said, gesturing toward the forest beyond the ruins. "This planet isn't a phenomenon. It's a life. We didn't resurrect it. It resurrected us." Thrix hesitated. "There are concerns. A sentient planet raises ethical and existential questions. If it can manipulate energy on such a scale, it poses a galactic threat." "Only to those who come with harm in their hearts," Sarah said evenly. "The Earth defends life, not power." The negotiations stretched for weeks. The Concord's representatives observed, questioned, and debated, while the humans demonstrated their harmony with the living world. They showed how the biosphere now operated as a single network, self-sustaining and symbiotic. They revealed no weapons, no armies, only life woven with memory. Some envoys were moved. Others were terrified. Cthulhu, who had once served under Concord command, found himself torn. "They can't comprehend it," he told Lyrian privately. "To them, control is safety, but this is freedom." One night a storm rolled in without warning, a vast tempest that split the sky with golden lightning. The Concord envoys panicked, believing the Earth was turning hostile. But Elias walked out into the rain, lifted his arms, and spoke softly. The storm eased. The lightning gentled into luminous arcs that danced harmlessly across the plains. He turned back to them, soaked but smiling. "You see," he said, "it doesn't obey. It listens." Thrix Orin, trembling, bowed his head. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "the grave we feared is only a mirror we didn't wish to face." When the envoys departed, they left behind something unexpected, a promise to suspend all military operations in the Sol sector. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was recognition. For the first time in recorded history, the Concord acknowledged humanity not as a ghost or a threat, but as a mystery worth preserving. In the months that followed, humanity flourished. The Earthborn rebuilt cities that breathed, structures of living metal and photosynthetic stone that grew rather than stood still. The Starborn forged new ships powered by symbiotic energy drawn directly from the planet's resonance. They no longer extracted or consumed, they collaborated. Every child born of this new age carried a genetic echo of the Earth's consciousness, linked faintly to its pulse. They called them sons and daughters of the pulse. Lyrian found herself at the heart of it all, torn between wonder and a quiet dread. She often wondered if anything so perfect could last. One night she confided in Elias, her voice low. "You've built paradise," she said. "But paradise has always frightened the galaxy. What happens when they decide peace is too dangerous?" Elias looked at the horizon, where the lights of new settlements shimmered like constellations reborn. "Then we'll remind them that peace isn't the absence of strength," he said. "It's the presence of memory." But even as hope grew, distant signals reached the outer colonies. Warnings of unrest, of whispers spreading through the Concord that humanity's resurrection was unnatural. Old fears stirred. There were those who saw the living Earth not as a miracle, but as an abomination that defied entropy itself. Fleets began to move again, quietly this time, masked behind diplomacy. Elias sensed it before anyone else did. The Earth whispered it to him through dreams, images of ships gathering, of shadows in the dark. When he awoke, his eyes were wet with tears. "It begins again," he said softly. Lyrian found him standing by the ruins of an ancient city the next morning, looking at the cracked marble of what had once been a human statue, a man holding a torch. "We've been given a second life," he said, "but it seems we must earn it, again and again." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "And this time?" she asked. He looked toward the horizon, where dawn was breaking over a world reborn. "This time," he said quietly, "we won't let the fire die." Far above them, deep in the cold expanse between stars, the Concorde fleets moved into silent formation. And deep below, in the molten heart of the earth, something vast and ancient stirred, watching, remembering, waiting for the day it might be called upon once more. Because this was no longer just humanity's story. It was the story of life itself refusing to stay buried. The first sign of the coming storm was silence, not the natural kind that filled forests at dawn, or the soft pause between heartbeats, but a dead, heavy quiet that settled across the skies, as if the very air held its breath. The birds stopped singing. The auroras dimmed. The earth's pulse slowed to a deep, uneasy thrum that made every living thing shiver. Elias Turner felt it before the instruments did, before the orbiting satellites, before the starborn sensors caught the faint shimmer of approaching fleets. The Concorde was coming back, and this time they weren't here to talk. High above the planet, thousands of vessels drifted in formation, sleek, silver-gray leviathans, engines humming with power drawn from harvested stars. They filled the void like a wall of inevitability. At their center loomed the dreadnought Council's judgment, its hull emblazoned with the sigil of the conquered tribunal. Inside, voices argued in a dozen languages, debating not whether to strike, but how hard. They called the planet the anomaly. They called its people the contagion. They had convinced themselves that what Earth represented, life, beyond control, was a threat to everything they built. On the surface, humanity gathered beneath the living towers and bio-cities that had grown from Earth's renewed soil. The air shimmered with quiet tension. Lyrian stood beside Elias on a terrace overlooking the plains, where luminous vines climbed the bones of the old world. The horizon glowed faintly red, engines igniting in orbit. She clenched her jaw. "They'll burn it all again," she said. "They can't stand that we lived." Elias's eyes were calm, almost sorrowful. "They called it a grave," he murmured. "Maybe they need to see what's buried beneath before they understand." He turned toward the plains, placing a hand on the soil. The ground pulsed faintly as though acknowledging his touch. "It's ready." Sirah Mikal stood with the starborn captains nearby, her voice sharp and unwavering. "We can't outgun them," she said. "But we don't have to. Our defense is this world itself. Every root, every current of wind. They're part of something larger." Cthulhu stepped forward, wings twitching nervously. "The Concorde believes you've weaponized the planet," he said. "If they strike, they'll strike with purges, planetary sterilizers. I've seen what those can do." Lyrian's gaze hardened. "Then we show them the truth before they fire." The first wave came at dawn, drones descending through the atmosphere in synchronized arcs, trailing silver contrails. They weren't bombs. They were eyes. They scanned the surface, mapping every settlement, every living structure. From orbit, commanders watched the feeds flicker across massive holoscreens. At first, the readings made no sense. The cities were breathing. Energy readings fluctuated like heartbeats. One technician whispered, "It's alive." The room fell silent. Then orders came. Proceed with sterilization. But when the drones descended lower, something happened. The air thickened. The clouds above twisted into spirals of luminous gold. One by one, the drones began to lose power, their systems overwhelmed by invisible interference. The Earth was speaking in frequencies no machine could withstand. Energy surged through the networked biosphere into trees, rivers, mountains. The planet was awake. From orbit, the fleet commanders saw their instruments blur with static. Communications failed. A ripple of electromagnetic storms spread outward from the planet like a heartbeat. Some captains panicked and fired prematurely, launching kinetic slugs and plasma bolts into the upper atmosphere. None reached the ground. Each projectile slowed, melted, or dissolved mid-air, as the planet's shield, an unseen lattice of energy drawn from the Earth's living core, absorbed them. Elias watched from the surface, his face illuminated by streaks of light burning harmlessly above. "It's not fighting them," he said softly. "It's defending us." In orbit, panic gave way to rage. The Concord Tribunal ordered an all-out strike. Thousands of ships opened fire at once. The night sky became a web of fire. The Earth shook under the barrage, oceans heaving, mountains splitting. Yet instead of destruction, the energy poured into the ground, feeding the network that pulsed beneath every root and stone. The planet drank the fire, and then it answered. Across the surface, fissures opened, not with magma, but with light. Great trees rose from the depths, their trunks like pillars of crystal, branches stretching toward the heavens. From their leaves fell spores of radiant dust that drifted upward, embedding themselves in the atmosphere. Within moments, the entire planet began to glow. To the fleet above, Earth looked like a single vast organism breathing light into space. And then their weapons failed. Reactors shut down. Control systems died. One by one, the warships went dark, floating powerless in orbit like metal ghosts. Inside the Council's judgment, alarms screamed. Unknown energy surge. Containment failing. Systems unresponsive. The Tribunal's high speaker, a being of mirrored skin and burning eyes, rose from his seat and shouted, "You see? It's not a world, it's a weapon." Cthulhu's voice came over the open channel from the surface. "No, it's a mirror, and it's showing you what you've become." For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, out of the radiant clouds, a shape began to form. Vast and luminous, neither human nor alien, but something older, a consciousness projected through the network, coalescing into a form that could be understood. It appeared before every ship, every soldier, every mind tuned to the battle. It was the Earth itself, wearing a face of light. Its voice resonated through every frequency, gentle yet overwhelming. "You call me a grave, yet you are the ones who buried your hearts beneath fear. I was silent because you forgot how to listen." The fleets trembled. The high speaker fell to his knees, eyes wide with awe and terror. "You are not supposed to be," he whispered. "I am because they are," the Earth said. "They remembered me. They healed what you thought dead. And now I remember you. All of you." Images filled the void. Ancient memories of the galaxy's first days. Worlds blooming, species rising together. Harmony before the age of conquest. Every being in the fleet saw it. Every soldier felt the weight of what had been lost. Some wept openly. Others screamed, unable to bear the reflection of what their civilization had become. On the surface, the light intensified until the sky looked like liquid dawn. Lyrian fell to her knees, overwhelmed. Elias stood unmoving, eyes glowing faintly as the Earth's energy flowed through him. "It's not destroying them," he said. "It's showing them the truth." Syrah watched the heavens, her voice breaking. "Will they understand?" Elias turned to her, and for the first time he looked impossibly old, as if every memory of humanity's struggle lived inside him. "Some will," he said, "and that's enough." Then slowly the light began to fade. The fleets drifted, crippled but intact. The Earth grew quiet again, its energy settling. The storm passed, and in its wake, a silence fell, not fearful this time, but reverent. When the transmission resumed between the surface and the Council's judgment, Thrix Orin appeared on the screen. His feathers dimmed, his voice trembling. "We came to erase you," he said, "but now we see. You are not our end. You are our beginning." Elias nodded. "Then learn from it. Go back to your worlds. Teach them that life isn't meant to be owned." In the weeks that followed, the Concord fleets withdrew. Rumors spread across the galaxy, of a living world, of humans who had outlasted extinction, of a planet that could speak. Many dismissed it as myth. Others came in secret, hoping to see for themselves. Some stayed, joining in the slow, patient rebirth of a civilization that had learned not to dominate, but to belong. Lyrian often visited the plains where the first meeting had taken place. Grass swayed gently in the breeze, glowing faintly with life. She would sit there for hours, listening to the distant hum beneath the soil, the Earth's quiet song. One evening she found Elias there watching the sunset. He looked peaceful. "It's over," she said softly. He smiled. "No," he replied. "It's just beginning." She hesitated. "What happens now?" "We grow," he said. "And one day, when the stars are ready, we'll help them remember too." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the auroras returned, brighter than ever. The planet exhaled, and with it came the scent of rain and renewal. In orbit, derelict Concorde ships drifted silently, their hulls reflecting the light of a world reborn. Some would be salvaged, others left as monuments, but all would bear the same inscription, etched by unseen hands into their metal skin. They called Earth a grave, and found humanity had thrived there. And somewhere in the deep, where memory and matter intertwined, the Earth dreamed, not of war, but of what came after. The stars shimmered in answer, and life, in all its fragile defiance, continued on.